Call this meeting to order, everybody. It is Monday, March 21st, 2022, 6:30 p.m. I'm going to start this off with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach. Roberts.
Here.
Stroman. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Evans. Drew.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is the invocation. We have Pastor Randy here to do that, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Time passes by pretty quick. Seems like it was only 2 weeks ago I was here doing the same thing. But it's who we are, what we have, where we're at. We do it for the glory of God and do it with the right spirit. I appreciate the staff of the city, citizens of Rapid City, and the city council for your efforts to make this a great place to live. We are blessed people. Let's give praise for that tonight. Lord, thank you once again for your favor resting upon each of us in the role and responsibility that we have to fulfill, Lord God. May we walk with integrity. May we find great character and obedience, Lord God, and our hearts filled with faith. Thank you for this city council, for this city staff, Lord God, for these citizens of Rapid City, Lord God, that we would do our very best to honor you and to experience the joy of what it means to live this life we live. You're the giver of life, and we thank you today. Thank you for giving wisdom and discernment for the decisions, for the responsibilities that are exercised here tonight. May you be given the glory. Amen. States of America.
Next on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. Motion by Roberts, second by Evans. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next, we have awards and recognitions. We don't have any tonight, so we're going to go on to general public comment. And I have two speakers tonight. Start first with Mr. Henry. You got the 3 minutes, sir.
One thing I noticed about some of the buildings around where I live, they don't pass the 2-finger opening. They're too heavy. And I called code enforcement about it. They never got back to me about the ADA deal. I have a lot of people from my apartment building that go over to Common Sense there on Mount Rushmore Road, and there's Boyd's Express over there where they get medication. But their doors are too heavy to open. And I've talked to the manager of the store there, and she was going to bring it up to her head, and I haven't heard anything about back from that. So we need to get some of these buildings that don't pass the 2-finger test, need to get ADA compliant and put those automatic door buttons in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Alex Vondru with the Youth City Council.
Hello. I just wanted to say that the bill concerning the more eco-friendly snowplow, the Youth City Council voted to approve that. Not approve as in get it done, but say we stand behind this and we approve getting a more eco-friendly snowplow. And we have also decided to take a stance and say that we would try to make more city vehicles more eco-friendly just to protect our city's environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I'll be closing general public comment. Going to move on to non-public hearing items 1 through 37. Going to open public comment for that. And Mr. Henry, you're another list for 10, 17, 20, 23, 25, 32, and 31.
Okay, Rapid Transit's looking at 2 new ADA buses. All the ADA buses need to be replaced. During the summertime, our new ones that we got a long a while back, we end up losing one or two of them, and they got to bring the old ones back. I am glad seeing some work on the streets, side streets, that are really being done. That's what the public wants done. That's what the citizens want done, because they drive on those streets. And we need to keep that up, besides the main interior ones. Again, we have another development that's going to 44 units that has one access. And again, I mentioned the engine companies and the truck companies. They need a lot of room to maneuver in there. And also supporting victims. I am an assault victim. I just heard from state's attorney that they got all their paperwork done and there's an arrest warrant out for her. That's a good thing. Also, all hazard material are very, very dangerous. So I'm glad we're going to have that coming. Again, Payne County Housing wants to build a 70-unit building for affordable housing. But I know in the building I live in, we got a lot of problems there that they need to fix. And they're short of maintenance, and it takes a long time to get things fixed. Plus, they didn't state how much they want from the grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Next up is consent items 1 through 35. Would any of my colleagues like to remove any of them? Mr. Stroman?
Yes, number 10 and number 22 and number 31.
Darla Drew?
Item 34, please.
Seeing nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 10, 22, 31, and 34. Motion by Evans, second by Jones. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those are approved. Item number 10, authorize staff to submit transit grant for FTA for FFY19, fiscal year 20, 5993 formula funds for capital assistance in the amount of $175,707 to allow for RTS to replace 2 ADA accessible paratransit vehicles at a cost ratio of 85:15. Mr. Stroman.
Thank you, Chair. May I direct a question to the Public Works Director, Dale Tech?
Absolutely.
First I want to move to approve and then retain the floor.
By Stroman, second by Solomon. And the floor is yours, Greg.
Dale, I understand that we need these new buses. I just had a question that's related, I guess, but is there going to be any change in the bus routes that you know of around the new building at Sioux in West Rapid? Are they going to have routes that would, because I think they're doing the paving over there now, or getting ready to do some paving, and there had been some talk about moving a bus stop over to Sioux Drive in front of the new building. Do you know if that's going to be done, or if there's going to be any alteration?
I don't know that at this moment. Certainly the Rapid Transit Division through our Metropolitan Planning Organization is going through and near completion of transit development plan that will identify any changes to routes. I can certainly follow up and get you some information on that. I'm not sure that that plan is done yet. I think it's near completion, but that's all I know this evening.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Greg. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add on to Mr. Stroman's comments is that recently I attended the National League of Cities, and by the way, to the youth that attended that conference, I thank you for your participation, and there was a lot of energy there. But essentially what I wanted to add on to this conversation is that there is a couple bills that are going through Congress right now, and if you want to send additional information in support of what we are doing here tonight, plus other things that could be coming our direction, the Senate Bill 3011 and H.R. 5735. They are bipartisan bills that have to do with the Transportation Authority and some potential money coming in from the federal government to assist on our housing, housing, that's on my mind as well, on transportation. So if we can also support what we are proposing here tonight, plus these additional items, I think we stand a good chance of having a real opportunity to help out our public transportation here within the city. Thank you, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. The motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 22, request authorization to seek proposals for professional services for Sioux Park Tennis Court reconstruction, project number PR226186. And we go to Mr. Stroman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd move to approve and ask to retain the floor.
Motion by Stroman, second by Solomon to approve. The floor is yours, Greg.
May I direct a question to Director Beegler, please?
Of course.
Jeff, I'm really excited to see that you've already moved on, the Parks Department has moved on getting proposals for this Vision Fund project. And as I believe we approved $3 million for this project. Is there any timeline or immediate timeline as how long this process will take to get moving on this?
Thank you for the question. This is a project that we expect to be bid early this fall, and it's anticipated that the entire 2023 season will be, these courts will be under construction. And the high schools have been notified that they will not be available for play during the 2023 season.
Thank you, sir. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Stroman. The motion on the floor is to approve, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? On to the next. Item 31, authorize the mayor and finance director to sign amendment to the agreement between City of Rapid City and Local 1031, Council 65, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Afl-Cio, for the period from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022, adopting salary adjustments for solid waste employees and certain airport employees. Motion by Drew, second by Nordstrom. Mr. Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank the HR and the Public Works and everyone that worked to get this put together in the mayor's office. I would say concerning the landfill employees, and I know that we're talking about, trying to get recruit and retain at the landfill. And I would say that the issue with the potential closing of hours or reduction of hours was a very controversial topic, and I received lots of very angry calls, emails, text messages from constituents about the proposed reduction of hours out there. And I'm glad to see that we're doing something to try to get the manpower that we need to keep the landfill open on regular hours. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Stroman. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will echo Mr. Stroman's comments. And I appreciate the council's being engaged on this too. A lot of council members were engaged in this. Obviously, our constituents reached out, customers of the city reached out, as well as city employees and, of course, our city leadership. So I thought bringing everybody to the table and working on this issue and agreeing on the shared goal of returning to normal business operations, but doing it better, making sure that we have the staffing in place so that we can provide great service to our community. One other thing I'll add to this, while we are adjusting salary adjustments for these particular groups, I've mentioned many times, and I think this is going to be done, and I think it's great that the city needs to do a compensation review of all of its employees to make sure that we're competitive, because the last thing we want to do is not be able to hire people because we can't compete. The fact of the matter is, retaining a good employee is much more cost-effective than constantly recruiting and training and trying your best to keep an employee. So if we can get out ahead and remain competitive in the marketplace so that we can be a great place to work, not just in terms of play, but in terms of pay, but in terms of culture, but also goes a long way in retaining really good employees. And I think the fact that the mayor has mentioned that he will go ahead and pursue that, that's something we should do at least every couple of years, 2 or 3 years, so that we remain competitive throughout. So this is a great place to start. Unfortunately, we waited until there was an issue before we addressed it. I don't want to do that with other departments, so I hope that we could be a little more proactive moving forward and make sure that folks have what they need to do their jobs well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too want to acknowledge the work of the staff that put this plan together, and it wasn't an overnight plan to develop. So I want to thank everyone that was involved in this, from Director Tech down to the rank and file that were involved in this process. It took a little while to get this put in place, and it's unfortunate that we are short-staffed, but we have to consider the safety of the employees above everything else. And a lot of businesses throughout the city are having the same kind of experience. They're short-staffed everywhere else, and I know other divisions and other departments within the city are experiencing something very similar to what has taken place at the landfill. But it just takes a little time to put a plan together, and I appreciate everyone that was participating in that plan. And so I'm very supportive of this, and it needs to be done. And again, thank you for everyone that was involved in this. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Darla Drew.
Chair, I have a question for Pauline Sumption, please.
Of course.
Director Sumption, I think you're the person I'd ask this question. We are going to raise a lot of employee salaries. Where will the money come from?
Originally, it'll come from their budgets. If they can't absorb them within their budgets, then more than likely we will have to do a supplemental appropriation. The two in particular are enterprise funds, so they will have to somehow find it within their rates to cover those costs.
But right now, we're not looking at any utility rate increases as such for these raises?
I don't know if there's any scheduled for solid waste or the airport at this time. We just did increase their rates. Many times, though, that enterprise funds, because they are trying to build a reserve and plan for capital projects, they do have some extra cash in their funds to cover these types of things, and then they'll end up making up for it later.
So they're going to cover it now, but we might be looking at utility increases maybe by next year?
We might have been looking at those anyway. That would be a question for Mr. Tech as to when the next rate increase was set for the solid waste.
All right, Chair, could I ask Mr. Tech?
Absolutely, Mr. Tech.
Mr. Tech, do you have any enlightenment on this particular cost rate increase?
Well, yeah, within the last year, we actually adopted a new 5-year rate plan for solid waste. Mm-hmm. That was before the inflation hit and the cost of goods and services and fuel and everything have gone up. So I would say it's not out of the realm of possibility that we're going to have to come back and ask for some sort of rate adjustments just to keep up with inflation. And then to speak a little broader in terms of our water and wastewater utility, you will be seeing an RFP coming in front of you here in the next meeting cycle to do a new 5-year rate plan for our water and wastewater utility, and certainly all those cost of services will be considered, and our rates will need to be adjusted in the year 2023 for those two enterprise funds. And the same can be said if we start running into issues with inflation, the cost of commodities and goods and services that our utilities need, we may be coming sooner to ask for an adjustment. That's just the crazy world we live in right now.
It is. We're in challenging times and unusual times, that's for sure. But the people that do get a hold of us and really wonder, you know, why we have to do these kinds of changes to service hours should also realize that we're trying to save them that increase in rates. This is a balancing act, and we go through it the best we can. So be patient and know that rate increases are probably coming, and we're not really sure where the hours are going to be ending up. And it sounds like even another change in utilities is coming down the path as well. So thank you for your answers. But when you get a hold of the council, people know that we're doing our best to balance this out.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. Richie, are you back in the queue? Okay. Motion on the floor is to approve the item. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 34, approve award of revised total base bid plus alternate 2 for Dinosaur Park accessibility improvements. Project number PR 206180, opened on March 1st, 2022 to MAC Construction Company in the amount of almost $3.5 million.
I'd like to direct a question to Director Bigler, if I could.
Of course.
Hello, Jeff. So we're looking at a cost reduction, is that right? Or this cost reduction notes that I noticed in here, maybe you could give me a little bit of information on that?
Actually, I would like to bring up our project manager for this project, Melissa Peterson, and she can answer all of those questions for you.
Sounds perfect. Hello, state your name again, please.
Melissa Peterson.
Okay. Well, Ms. Peterson, what's the cost reduction notes that I saw mentioned here?
Well, so we only got one bid for Dinosaur Park, so we were able to talk to the company and work on some cost reductions. Some of it was voluntary by the contractor, which was great. Some of it was some design changes, changing materials, that sort of thing, and including just cutting a few things out of the project to get to a point where we could afford it.
Are those few things going to affect the quality of the project at all? I hope not, but I just got to know what they are.
No, I don't believe so. I think it's still going to be a really good project. One of the big changes was like a plaza area, but you know, by just cutting out that one thing, we were able to save quite a bit of money. We'll still have the ADA path, which is our biggest, you know, our biggest reason for this project. There will still be work done on the dinosaurs. There will still be work done on the stairs. So it'll still be a good project.
And now it starts on the 22nd, or you've already started?
Construction?
Yeah.
No, we have not started construction.
When does it start?
Likely this fall.
Oh, this fall,
Yeah.
okay, excuse me on that. Yeah, I guess I did know that. Well, this is just such an iconic part of our city, and the fact that we're going to have ADA accessibility makes me very happy, and of course for moms too with kids in strollers, it'll make a big difference, because I remember when my daughter came back here and then she had children, and she was just appalled that we didn't have some kind of path for her stroller. So, I mean, that happens, I'm sure, all the time. So thank you for your work on this, and I'm really looking forward to this project being complete. I yield.
Thank you, Darla. Jason Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I make a motion to approve, if I can get a second.
Second.
Motion by Sullivan,
Retain.
second by Jones. The floor is yours, Jason.
And I think just this is a great reminder. This was a Vision Fund project from previous councils finally coming to life. I think we're all very excited that people have the opportunity to go up there and visit this iconic landmark in our community. Always good to have more bids, but I'm grateful that this company is also helping us out a little bit as well. So very quick question for you. I don't know if you answered this before, but what's the timeline for completion on this?
Right now, we're looking at a completion in December of '23.
December of '23. And then everybody could have the opportunity to perhaps drive up there and then walk or?
Yeah, and
Right
we'll
up.
have some intermediate project milestones.
Yeah.
So there will be some access up there next season.
Will it remain
Next summer season.
open throughout the project?
The site will be closed this fall through next spring, totally. So they have, or, actually, I'm not positive about that.
Okay. But there's a season that it will be closed to the public? Is that with the restoration of the dinosaurs and those sorts of things, or?
For the most part, we're
Walkways.
maintaining access. Since there has to be work done on those stairs,
Yeah.
we'll be trying to alternate. Once the stairs get done, then people can use the ADA path, that sort of thing.
Well, I think having a great communication plan of when it's open and when it's closed will be very, very helpful, because people are going to get very curious and obviously just love to be up there. So thank you for your update.
Thank you, Jason. Pat Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Ms. Peterson, if I may?
Of course.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson, the bid that came in almost 3.5 million, how close was that to the estimate of what we had budgeted to spend on this?
Well, so we had budgeted about 3.5, but their original bid, even just the base bid, was 3.9 million. So it was quite a bit over. That's not accepting any of the alternates. So we couldn't even afford the base bid for what we had.
Well, good work to you and anyone else that was involved to get some negotiations to get it to a price that we could afford, and so this project can move forward. We all are excited about it, I think, in the community and our visitors, so well done, and we're looking forward to updates as we move forward. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Bigler or Ms. Peterson, is that a little bit of history on this project. It came through the Historic Preservation Commission as well. And one of the issues that I recall coming up with is you were talking about the steps being replaced. And part of that conversation included the runs and the rise. Right now, currently, they're, shall I say, not unacceptable. And one of the portions that we're modifying or changing is the run and rise. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. And also, can you go back to a little bit more history on this part of these? The original bid proposal was, again, what was it, 3.9?
Yeah, the base bid was 3.9.
And then because of commodities, shall I say, and probably a little bit about the labor part of it being coming in, shall I say, with a significant change, we had to reduce some things in there the way we can go forward on.
Correct.
About a dollar amount, how much did we have to reduce that by?
Well, so
Or maybe I should ask what projects are, or what options are having to be reduced or eliminated at this point?
so we made some changes to materials, like I said.
Yep.
We ended up cutting a few things out of the project, like that plaza I was saying. Some of it was planting material. There will still be quite a bit of planting material, but we had cut that back. Yeah, and then there was some items that we cut out to fundraise for.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that we are not getting everything that we originally proposed, so, or thought we were going to get. So, but I thank you very much for everybody that was involved in this project and trying to come up with the best solution that possible for us. And thank you. Glad I didn't have to ask Mr. Bigler any history questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
yield.
Nordstrom. Bill Evans?
Hi, I'm going to support this project, but there is one concern, and I sort of brought it up at Public Works. Was there ever a time when we actually were presented with this and shown, did I miss that we could look at the actual project and see what's being done so we could maybe make suggestions or anything? Because I don't remember us ever having that review period, and perhaps I've missed it, but has anybody here really reviewed the plans? Because I have not, and I might have just missed out on it. But did we schedule that and have public reviews and everything?
Mr. Bigler?
Yes, if I may. We did. We actually had a master plan done of this site in 2015, at which we had public input sessions to arrive at that document, which came before this council, before you were on the council. But it was approved at that time, and so the design for this project that was just bid was based upon the ideas that were solicited from the community at that time of the master plan.
But was it ever like laid out here in the chamber so we could step up before our meeting and actually check it out and see what we're voting on is my only concern.
No, it was not. We had public open house sessions at our Parks and Rec office, and so we did have the community there, and we had the designs laid out at that time.
Well, to me, that indicates something of a faulty process, and I did mention this, that we need to have something more similar to what the DOT does with theirs, with the timeline for the projects, what's going on then, so we can click on it and we can actually see where we're at. Because I'm sure it's going to be a fine design, but I'm a little bit wary of what I'm doing tonight, because I'll be honest with you, I have not seen the plans. And if I were spending $3 million on a house of my own money, I'd make darn sure that I saw that architect sitting there and I asked him about every single line that was on that drawing before I approved anything. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. The motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And we're moving on. Item 36. Second reading of ordinance number 6533, supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2022. Motion by Jones to approve. Second by Roberts. All in favor? Any opposed? 37, approve fiscal year 2022 Rapid City Arts Council funding recommendations for community investments, arts and humanities, and this was sent to council without recommendation.
I buzzed in.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I'd like to make a substitute motion as far as funding this, and if I get a second, I'd continue.
What's the motion, Mr. Jones?
The motion would be to fund 3 of the organizations at their full amount that they requested, that being the Black Hills Symphony, Rapid City Municipal Band, and the Ranger Band. The difference would be $8,627 to come from undesignated cash. That would give those 3 groups the full amount that they asked for. That's my motion.
Motion by Jones, second by Mr. Evans on that.
Can I have the floor?
And you may.
Thank you. So why these 3 groups over anyone else? Our arts community and our arts groups are not funded very well anyway in our community, and they do tremendous things to support many, many people. They provide great entertainment. They provide organizations for things for people to do. They provide interest for visitors to come and take part and participate in. These 3 groups, the Rapid City Ranger Band, the Rapid City Municipal Band, and the Black Hills Symphony, in my opinion, are probably the 3 most visible groups of all of those that are listed for funding of that $100,000 that's available. The Ranger Band, for those that aren't familiar with it, is a group of high school students who represent Rapid City and participate in parades and other events all throughout the Black Hills, representing Rapid City and carrying the good name of our city and the support of our arts with them wherever they go. The Rapid City Municipal Band is a very long-standing community band here in the city, performs many concerts throughout the summer with guest performers, and it's a treat for locals and visitors alike, and many people travel from near and far to come hear the municipal band, and many people play in the municipal band. And again, for the amount that we invest in them, the bang for our buck with what they get for representing the city in a bright and shining way, I believe is very high. And then the Black Hills Symphony Orchestra is a premier group of West River, Black Hills, Rapid City musicians who put on concerts that are on par with any other symphony in our area. They work tremendously hard. They donate a lot of time. They donate their skill and are in need of support. And so if you look at those three organizations, from high school to community band to symphony orchestra, all here in our city, it's an amazing example of the quality of instrumental music instruction and participation that takes place in our community. And because these groups represent us so well, not only in town but on the road and every place they go, I believe supporting them at their full request. The symphony asked for $22,500. They were granted $19,000, so this would be an increase of $3,500. The municipal band asked for $20,827. They were granted $17,500. This is an increase in $3,300. The Ranger Band asked for $11,800 and was granted $10,000, and this is an increase of $1,800. So I'm asking for $8,627. I don't want to take away from any of the groups that are listed there to receive their funding, because they all need it. They need it desperately. But I would like to see an additional $8,627 come from undesignated cash to fully fund the requests of these three organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I'm going to call on the Finance Director, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I can appreciate what you want to do, I would hesitate to change the recommendations of the Arts Council. By ordinance, we say, hey, you're going to be the one that decides how this money is spent. They know going into it how much they have. They have a process. There's reasoning behind why they chose the amounts that they did for each of these organizations, either based on their application, their complete application, the presentation, or a combination of the two. Without knowing their reasoning behind their funding recommendations, I would just be hesitant to change those at this time. In addition, obviously, we would need to do a supplement if this is the way we would like to go with this. So just cautioning that, and perhaps look at the 2023 budget if we want to increase funding overall to the arts and humanities.
Thank you, Pauline. Darla.
There we go. Thank you. I can certainly appreciate Councilman Jones' work on this and his request on this. It isn't a lot. I think that the Arts Council were doing the best they could with what they had, and it's up to us to come and fill in those places where they just don't think they have any more money. It's kind of embarrassing at the rate we fund the arts in this town and what we expect out of them. The Black Hills Symphony Orchestra, in a town this size, to have a symphony orchestra is extremely rare. You have to put some money into it. Not only that, it's a place for a lot of our students from the orchestra and band programs at Central Stevens, St. Thomas More, to go ahead and hone their skills a little further. So they're actually playing with an orchestra that looks good on college apps, and it sounds good too. We have an excellent program in Rapid City, and that's where those kids can go up a little bit in their skills. Also, I'd like to say for the Ranger Band, the marching band, it was something that was put together a long time ago when everybody in the Black Hills decided they wanted to have parades. And I don't know what year this was. I can't tell you, maybe 1935, something in there. And our responsibility was a marching band. You might know that Belfouche, what do they have, Bill? I'm sorry, the Bugle Corps? Oh, the Cowboy Band, the Drum and Bugle Corps. We bound together because we couldn't have a decent parade without working together. And the Ranger Band, seriously, is one of the few left over from that initial collaboration. And I'm very proud of it. And a lot of students from our high schools take part in that and get that extra boost over the summer to play in a marching band. Believe me, that's also important when going to college. Then there's the Municipal Band. Every other Wednesday, I believe I'm right on that, in the summertime, they perform down at the band shell. You go down there. Our senior community is in full force at that. And if you're going to have a town that kind of takes care of people from cradle to grave, You got to have some things for them to do. And it's embarrassing because these guys can't even afford new T-shirts, okay? That's what's going on with some of our music in this town. And we have the money. It's there in our undesignated funds. We don't have to go back and go for next year. We can say we can do $8,000 right now. I don't think that we need to go beyond that. And if you think of people sometimes don't realize, like the doll, what's the actual benefit to us? We have a lot of artists in this town, and they have to have a place to exhibit. They have to. Okay, if you have an exhibit, you have that on your resume forever, and you can get and book bigger shows. That's where arts come from. They just don't magically appear out of nowhere and somehow we got a great artist. They're grown, they're given money, and they are nurtured. So yes, I'm very passionate about this because I think we're an arts community that can do better. We can do better. And we want to judge our art as not being as good as this or that. Well, we got to put some money into it. We put $100,000 into it for the last 20 years. We can grow that. We're more than capable of doing $200,000. So for this extreme gift to our city from the musicians and the artists that live here, I think it's our best bet to give them some money right now and let them go ahead and have a good season next year, and then we'll think about doing $200,000 next year. But right now, $8,000 isn't that much. Thank you.
Bill Evans?
Thank you, Ms. Drew, for your passionate speech, which I completely agree with. And we have to keep in mind that the reason this city is a tourist destination, the reason it exists as a destination is because of two of the largest pieces of visual art anywhere on the planet Earth, you know, Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse. It became a destination because of Mount Rushmore. That is the arts. And the arts are always a good investment, and people have found that in every city that invests in them. I would like to point out some things I pointed out at the Legal Finance Committee. Most of this is just seed money. The Municipal Band does play 8 concerts during the summer with attendance ranging from, depending on what we do, from 1,000 to as many as 3,000 we had for the 4th of July. We estimated that. These are free concerts multiplied by 8. That is a lot of bang for the buck for not much money at all. And if you talk to any promoter, talk to the Civic Center, what it costs to put on a concert. And so this is great. And in comparison, I also pointed out the seed money that goes to make these things happen is multiplied many times over. Now, it's the full budget for our municipal band. It was $14,000 last year. Sioux Falls Mayor Tim Hagen tried to cut their budget for municipal band a year ago. The public outcry was so great, their budget last year ended up being $185,000 for their municipal band. So we have a ways to go to catch up with Sioux Falls when we're always comparing apples with apples. And as the seed money for the Symphony goes, our Symphony gets that small amount. They end up raising another up to $200,000 to make the season go. In the meanwhile, Sioux Falls' arts organizations are somewhat more sophisticated in their fundraising. Their budget for this year's South Dakota Symphony is $2.4 million. So we have a ways to catch up with the city of Sioux Falls in support for the arts. So thank you, Darla, because I know you feel as I do. This is an investment that simply, you know, you can't explain the benefits it brings to a community and to the citizens' lives. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Bill. Back to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, this is not the only funding that we give to the arts. We also give directly to the Doll, the Journey, and the Performing Arts Theater, to name the 3 off the top of my head. So it's not like it's $100,000 and that's it. I know it still pales in comparison to the city of Sioux Falls, but they also have a budget that's about 10 times our size. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clarification.
Darla Drew.
I just need to add one thing. Thank you for your ability to let me speak again. But anyway, the arts aren't just making you smarter. The arts can make you money. I made my entire living off playing in a rock band for 40 years, okay? It's not just fun. It was a business. And that's a lot of businesses around here that you see all the time that are at summer nights or wherever. They don't come out of nowhere. They have to come out of a breeding ground. And so we might give money to the Dollar, the Journey, or some of these organizations, but the ones that provide us music for free, we got to give them some money to help them inspire the young people that can go and see them and go, hey, I could do something with this. I don't have to just play my clarinet in my room. I might be able to do something real with this. And so, and we produce really high-quality musicians that go to colleges and other places around the country. So I've just got to say, it can make you money. It doesn't just make you smart.
Thank you, Darla. Richie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The suggestion I have is that I'm going to support the $8,000 increase, but I would also like to encourage the folks that are very passionate about this to take a look at what Sioux Falls is doing, how they do it as well down there. They're doing some other things that we are not doing, and I don't know if it's the state law that we have to revise or if it's ordinances that we have to revise, but there is some other supplemental ways to augment the local arts and culture. So if we get a chance to take a look at that, but I'm going to go along with this, but in the future we got to do something more than just take it out of the undesignated cash. I'm just not comfortable with taking it out of the undesignated cash, but I will support this because of the relatively low amount. But we got to do some more outside of the box thinking. I'm sorry?
Ask how much we have in undesignated.
I got an answer for that. So the question was how much we've got in designated cash. And if you get a chance to take a look at item number 27, it shows the dollar amounts. But I'm very concerned about what we are planning to do with our undesignated cash because I don't have all the answers just yet. But let's take a look at augmenting it for next year in a different way. Thank you. I'll yield it.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Pauline, can I ask you a question? So this money was budgeted in the 2022 budget, correct?
That is correct.
And then it was sent over to them to make their recommendations on the money we budgeted.
Correct.
This is a little bit odd. I don't think I've ever seen any council in the 11 years that I've been on the council change a budgeted item like this when it comes out for a supplemental appropriation, basically a year later. And my only concern about this is I think this is great. I think they should have more money. I think that's something that should be talked at during the budget cycle. But when we start this on something that's already budgeted, where do we stop? What's going to be the next thing in a supplemental appropriation that we decide this is something that we really like and we've got a little extra money here, so let's pull it out and let's add it into here. That's what a budget is for. A budget is for putting this money away. That's where we decide where we're going to spend it, and this is just a supplemental appropriation. So I just find this a little bit odd. I think it's really an inappropriate way to do it after a budget. I will be voting definitely no against this. I think this is a discussion that should be had in the next budget and not a change that should be done here. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. The motion on the floor is to approve with a budget supplement. And Heidi, can we do a roll call vote for this one?
Jones?
Aye.
Lehman?
No.
Solomon?
No.
Evans? Drew?
Aye.
Nordstrom?
Aye.
Roberts? No. Stroman? No. Armstrong?
No.
Motion fails 5-4.
So for item 37, I would entertain a motion. Move to approve as is.
Yes.
Entertain a second to the motion. Second. Second by Stroman. Motion by Roberts, second by Stroman to approve as is. Roll call vote.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong.
Aye.
Jones. Lehman.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public hearing items, items 38 through 42. We're going to open public hearing comment period. The Public Works Department had a couple-minute presentation, Mr. Tech told me. So we're going to go ahead and turn the floor over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to introduce Kevin Newman with HDR, as well as Stacy Titus, Assistant Public Works Director. They're going to give you a very brief presentation in relation to items 41 and 42, and then open it up for questions for you if you have any during this public hearing portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. Jennifer Seatsman with Black Hills Council Local Governments is also in attendance to answer questions if there are any. We'd like to present on the Miscellaneous Improvements Project, facility-type fencing improvements. This is a miscellaneous improvements project, and when I talk about miscellaneous improvements project, we grouped a number of similar improvements for water and water rec into a single project. The intention is economy of scale. So there's about 14 improvements that we're proposing to do under this one project. And I need to... There we go. So first map here is the project location map. And on this map, there are 4 water improvement project areas. Those are the blue dots on the map. And then there is the water reclamation facility, which is in the bottom right-hand corner by the yellow dot. And that has about 10 improvement projects at that location. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Newman with HDR to present on the specific improvements that are involved in this project.
All right, thanks, Stacy. As you mentioned, my name's Kevin Newman with HDR, and I'm just going to real quickly go through the individual improvements. So here, improvements associated with the water system include installation of chain link fence and gates for added security at 3 of the reservoir sites, which was a recommendation that came out of the risk and resiliency study. And then in addition, replacing electrical equipment at the Robbinsdale booster station and adding flow metering equipment. So this exhibit illustrates where immediate improvements are needed at the water rec facility and will be completed as part of the miscellaneous improvements project. It shows that this exhibit shows that we're hitting a good portion of the existing plant. These locations are where there are current maintenance challenges and upgrades or improvements are needed for continued operation. The locations where these improvements are being made will continue to be utilized and or incorporated into the long-term project, the plant expansion project that's also being planned. Just a few photos on these next 2 slides illustrate some of the specific improvements that are being made and include replacing some equipment in the digester that's either the digester building that are either inoperable or just inefficient, and then doing some screening improvements at this pretreatment building and the screen bypass just for reliability. There's some safety issues with the covers over the septic receiving tanks, and so those covers hatches are being replaced. grease line piping is plugged. One of them is plugged, so there's replacement piping that's being installed for the grease piping. The equipment that's worn out and close to being inoperable include the grit removal equipment, and then continuing here, trickling filter pumps. 2 of the 4 trickling filter pumps are being replaced. One is already out of service. The other one is close to being at a point where it's going to need to be replaced. And then there's some electrical equipment that needs replacement, including some MCCs and 2 standby generators that have challenges with operation, and they're replacing those with a series of natural gas generators. And then the sludge holding pond mixers, only one of the 3 mixers is currently operating, the other 2 are not, and so just those need to replace. And then finally, with the Homeland Security study that was completed, the automatic access gates and fence realignment is being done at the main entrance of the water rec facility for security purposes, and then also access control. This slide shows estimated costs, breakdown of estimated costs for each of the components that were just described. The top table is the total estimated construction cost for the water improvements, and that's $700,000. The bottom table is estimated costs for the individual components, and then the total estimated construction cost for work that's being done at the water rec facility or wastewater system improvements. So the total estimated construction cost with the water and the wastewater water rec facility improvements combined is $6 million. So with these improvements and with the funding application, it's necessary to meet environmental compliance requirements. An environmental review was previously completed for the entire water rec facility site as part of the long-term planned expansion. And as part of that, there were no adverse impacts that were found, so there's very little work that needed to be done as part of these miscellaneous improvements work. Additional environmental review was required at the reservoir sites for security fencing improvements. Agency response letters have been received for all but one of those agencies, and the letters that we have received have indicated either no objection or no significant impact. We're still waiting on a response letter from the Corps of Engineers, but we also anticipate no objections from them as well. And then I'm going to skip over the next slide and we'll come back to that. This shows the project schedule with the public hearing being held today in April, 1st of April, and throughout 1st of April, the applications, funding applications are due, and then we'll continue to work on plans and specs and have those completed, ready for bidding, advertising and bidding. We anticipate bid opening in May, and then June is when the funding board will meet, and we anticipate a funding award at that time, and then construction would start in July and continue for approximately 11 months to a year, and expected to be completed in June of 2023. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Stacy to talk about rates.
Thank you, Kevin. On the rates here, this project is originally funded by the ARPA funding that the city has already received. However, we're able to leverage that funding by applying for matching funds through the state, and it's just a way to get more money through the matching process. So the impact to the rates on this project is there's really no impact to rates. What we're asking for is authorization to submit a grant application for water and a grant application for water rec, the water reclamation facility. So from that standpoint, this project is budgeted with ARPA fundings. We're going to leverage it with an application for additional grant money. And with that, we're open for questions.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Obviously, securing our water and wastewater, well, that's pretty important. Can you talk to me a little bit about the size of the fence and how much of a deterrence that would be for security?
Yeah, good question, and thank you for that question. So the fence that'll be put up around the reservoirs, it's a 10-foot high fence with anti-climb, so it has the barbed wire on the top of it. There'll be some security along the bottom of the fence as well, so it prevents somebody from trying to dig underneath the fence to get access to those water
Well, the more we're in a drought, the more valuable that water gets.
That's right, yep.
Another question, and I don't know how much we should get into this, but do we have monitoring on these sites at all? Or any plan to in the future? And obviously monitoring could be in person and or video surveillance, but around these sites.
I probably won't go into the specific types of security we have,
Right.
but we have a multi-level security system that we try to employ for our reservoirs and our remote sites, meaning it's kind of a three-tiered
Okay.
approach. You want to first delay. The longer you can delay an intrusion, the more likely you're not going to have one. So it's a three-tiered approach is what we employ.
And I would prefer you not go into specifics, but what I think is good for people to know is that, one, there's going to be a deterrence with the fencing there, and that two, that we have other items that we look at for security to make sure that these areas are protected. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Chair. I want to follow up on what Jason's talking about, and I appreciate that you don't want to go into detail, and I don't want you to go into detail on the specifics of the security, but, so we're talking about a 10-foot high chain link fence, possibly some cameras, some barbed wire at the top. Is there going to be an alarm system or anything like that, or is that getting too specific?
That's probably a little specific for this audience at this time. We do have facilities with alarm systems. Not all facilities have alarm systems.
When I grew up, that we had a water tower that, in my hometown, that a lot of people like to go up and paint graffiti on it. And the city decided that they were going to paint it over once and for all and put in the fencing and the barbed wire and the security system and the alarm system. And a classmate of mine who ended up being one of the top graduates at the School of Mines in electrical engineering went and disarmed it like the first weekend, and it was painted again. And so like Jason said, there's nothing more important than our water supply and the purity of our water supply. And so I would just implore you to do whatever you can to make that secure. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, we do have 2 elevated water reservoirs, and to my knowledge, neither of them have ever been painted, so I believe the system we have is working.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Stroman, that was a pretty intelligent friend you had. I bet he was a band student. So, if I may, I forgot my question. I had to get the shot in first. Now, the band thing. So, you're going to apply for 2 grants, a water grant and a water reclamation grant, correct? Is it anticipated that if we receive the grants, that will cover all costs of this project? Or how much will the city funds have to cover?
We currently have what's called ARPA funds. That is money that was given to the city to be used directly for water and wastewater improvements. That funding has been received by the city. The state has indicated that if you apply for matching grant funds, to supplement your ARPA funds, they will match it in a 50% match. So this project for construction dollars is ARPA funds and 50% match. We have local money that has been spent on engineering, so the only local money that we are contributing on this project is for engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Nordstrom.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, let me thank Jennifer Sitzma for helping out in the application process. I saw your name is on the list, so no, you weren't part of it? HDR? Okay. I just wanted to give you, since your name showed up on the application process, I thought I'd give you some credit for that. But thank you. Have you folks got a priority list of what's going to be done first, or where it's going to be done first? Can you share that information?
We have a construction schedule. A lot of this is with the supply chain. So we have some projects that have materials that are more readily available that we're saying milestone-wise, we'd like that completed sooner. And it has to do primarily with the supply chain. This project, I believe, is scheduled for, on the presentation, we showed it for about a year. So July to July, I believe, is the rough time frame we're looking at.
Yeah, and something else that I learned new, and it may not be a part of this conversation, but for me, a new term that came up is ultra-high performance concrete. Is that going to be involved in this project at all, anywhere?
Yeah, no, there's really not a lot of structural work that's being done on these. It's mostly electrical, process, and architectural work. The new generators, we've got concrete pads that'll be, but it doesn't require ultra.
Okay, very good. And then, I think it's important that everybody understands that we're getting a lot of federal money coming in on this. And then you also mentioned that the state revolving fund is going to be participating on this. And that it is through Danner, that's going to be the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Yes, these applications will go to Danner.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And we tried, Jennifer.
As you showed some of those pictures, a bunch of memories came rushing back because I think I was in 7th grade or so when that treatment plant was proposed and being built, and it was a great sort of newspaper pride, front page, and how we were going to capture all those fumes and we were going to run all those motors and it's going to pay for itself and everything. That system never did function. Is that correct? That they trapped gases and actually ran the place off of that?
Are you talking about the digester gas?
I guess. I mean, whatever's coming out of those domes, it was supposed to go in some...
We do utilize, if I may, we do utilize digester gas to run the boilers. So we have methane boilers that are out there that are operated off that. Now, the boilers are used to heat the sludge component, so it's kind of a perpetual cycle because they're being used to heat the domes. We do have a flare that flares the excess methane gas that we don't use through the boiler process.
Well, I thought of this the other day when I was going through the City of Fargo budget, because they were stating all through this document when they were talking about their solid waste disposal area and how their gas is all trapped at their, disposal site and running all of their generators and everything, was self-sustaining everything. And I know that was kind of a plan we had that was never implemented, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I'm just hoping that we can move to a place when we have an idea that's somewhat state-of-the-art, somewhat forward-thinking, we can make it sure it gets executed, because I don't think the North Dakotans are that much smarter than we are. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and thank you, gentlemen. We're going to close public hearing, go on to item 38, consent public hearing items 38 and 39. You want to pull either of them? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Motion by Nordstrom, second by Roberts to approve 38 and 39. All in favor? Any opposed? Non-consent public hearing items 40 through 42. Item 40, request to approve Resolution 2021-052 by KTM Design Solutions for 605 Storage LLC for a comprehensive plan amendment to the major street plan for property generally described as being located at 3276 and 3300 Campbell Street. The recommendation is to continue this item to the April 18th City Council meeting per the applicant's request. Motion by Roberts to do that, second by Jones. All in favor of moving the item to the April 18th meeting? Any opposed? Item 41, approve Resolution 2022-029 authorizing the mayor and finance director to submit an application for financial assistance to the South Dakota Board of Water and Natural Resources for a project titled 2022 Miscellaneous Water and Wastewater Facility Type and Fencing Improvements Project, project number WRF 202608 CIP 51132.4 for wastewater portion of the improvements project, and recommendations to approve. Motion by Roberts, second by Solomon. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 42, approve Resolution 2022-030 authorizing the mayor and finance director to submit an application for financial assistance to the South Dakota Board of Water and Natural Resources for a project titled 2020 Miscellaneous Water and Wastewater Facility Type and Fencing Improvement Projects, project number WRF 202608 CIP 51132.4 for water portion of the improvements project. Motion by Solomon to approve, second by Roberts. All in favor?
Hold on.
Oh, Darla Drew's in here.
Thank you. I'm not sure who to ask this question, but maybe Dale. Do we have any say on how the ARPA funds are used?
Well, there's specific guidance in what the ARPA funds can be used for, and certainly these two projects are right down the middle of the road of what the definition of the ARPA funding that we received can be used for. For instance, water and wastewater improvements. We can't use it for expansion of the system. For instance, if there was a development that we were trying to serve, we could not use ARPA funds for that. So these projects fit right in the middle of what ARPA allows for funding.
Can you tell me how much that is in the ARPA funding?
We're looking at a total of $6 million project, so by doing the math, 4 million, 3 and 3. So $3 million of city funding that we were going to use, city ARPA funds that we received, and then we're going to leverage another $3 million in state ARPA funding through the SRF process.
All right, well, it just seems kind of surprising to me that we really didn't hear much about the ARPA funds until tonight, you know, and that they'd kind of been designated already. So I have nothing against this. It just seems that, you know, some of these funds that are coming to us from the federal government, whether it's a result of COVID or some of those other things that happened in the last couple of years, that we just don't get to know that much about them before they're already designated. So that's my concern.
Totally understand. We will have some future projects coming forward. I believe the ARPA funds have to be expended by 2026.
That is correct. We have to have them allocated by the end of 2024 and expended by the end of 2026.
Well, I'd just like to have a little bit of heads up on some of these projects that come up and where those funds are being expended, so we might have a further say on them. We might have a different idea on, you know, water is very, very important, but we have a lot of things that are important in the city, and so I'd just like to make sure that I know where this money is going, where it's coming from, and how it's being designated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion on the item is to approve. All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposed? Next item, bills list. Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,668,250.57.
Motion by Solomon, second by Roberts to approve the bills list. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Move to adjourn by Roberts, second by Solomon. All in favor?